find insight, guidance, and answers. Tune into Spirit with radio medium Laura Lee.
My assistant and I subscribe to a newsletter called Good News, which is hard to come by these days. But I found this inspiring story that I'd like to share with you all of a man named Carlos Whitaker from Nashville, Tennessee, who is a black man, and his neighbor, James Martin, who is in his 70s, and how for years these two neighbors lived without ever speaking to one another up until just recently. And it all started with Painted Lawn Rabbit. Mr. James had a huge American flag draped across his front door, and he had 2 porcelain bunnies in his front yard. Carlos said that he would wave, smile, he shouted morning, nothing, not even an acknowledgement from James in any way. And that's how he understood their relationship would stand. But then he saw Mr. James walk out his front door with a can of paint in one hand and a brush in the other. He proceeded to kneel down in front of one of the bunnies, opens up the can of paint, and dips the paintbrush into the can and begins to slowly and carefully paint the white bunny black. For the next 12 hours, Carlos said he was trying to come up with 1,000 reasons why he might have painted the bunny black other than the reason his gut was telling him. So the following day, he saw Mr. James on his driveway, and he walked across the street and asked him. And that's where the conversation began. And Mr. James says this is going to be hard work and uncomfortable, having this conversation to admit his own bias. And it was important to call out people in the community as well as our friends to admit their own bias in their hearts. And that's where the apology came across at that moment in time between the 2 neighbors. And that's where the healing work begins. That story resonated with me about today's message I'd like to share with you about releasing yourself to let go of the past. Limited thinking was passed on to you by another person in your life, but that person never held the reins. It was you all along. And at a certain point in your life, you're going to realize this bond between yourself and another person and how you may have given your power away all this time. The first step towards any healing to occur is awareness. And when you become aware of this moment, you're going to transcend the past by rewriting your narrative for the future. You've always been free to choose how you want to shape your future. Releasing a past burden gives you light as well. And I mean that on all levels. It helps your energy increase to rise above the fray. It helps you see a bigger picture, shedding a lot of understanding of your actions and behaviors. So forgive yourself if you see a connection between yourself and someone from your past about how you took on a belief that maybe perhaps doesn't fit you today. But forgive the other person too. What imprisoned you was only an illusion of your own making. No one's going to hold you back from living life on your terms. Letting go of the past sets you free for your future to rewrite something completely new, and true inspiration will move you, just as it did for James when he stepped onto his front lawn to paint his white bunny black. If you are struggling with something in your past and can't understand what's blocking you from moving forward in your life, give me a call at radiomediumlauralee.com. We'd love to hear from you and get you on the show as soon as possible. But also, we're accessible to you on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter too.